Hello, everyone. Welcome to the APA style workshop. I'm Christopher Ryan, EHHS academic coordinator, but most of you probably know me as your success coach. We're fortunate to have two incredible presenters join us now. We have Mila Sue, associate librarian, and Melina Titi, reference and instruction librarian. So the purpose of this workshop is to help you strengthen your skills in three key areas. We're going to talk about academic integrity, APA citation practices, and formatting submissions. These tools are essential for your academic success, and we hope that this effort is timely for your needs during the semester. A few housekeeping items before we get started. This session is being recorded, so you'll have the option to view this later and reference it on your own as needed. Feel free to drop any questions in the chat. I'll be in there monitoring them, and also keep yourself muted during this presentation. So now, without further ado, I'll turn it over to Mila and Melina.
Thank you, Chris. So my name is Melina Titi, and I'm going to run through some slides going over kind of some high-level information about citations and also kind of zooming in on some specific things about APA style and creating APA style citations. We will also be discussing concepts related to plagiarism and academic honesty, and introducing some resources to help with APA style paper formatting. So I will go ahead and get started with the slides first, and then at the end, my colleague Mila has a supplementary handout with some links that she'll be showing. So to give you kind of a big picture idea of why we cite things, to keep in mind when you're doing your citations and wondering to yourself, why am I doing this? Why is it important? Well, there's two main reasons. So one is to prevent plagiarism and to give credit where it's due. Obviously, plagiarism is a big issue in academia. And when you're writing a paper, we want to ensure that we are distinguishing very clearly between our own thoughts and our own words and the thoughts and ideas and words of other people. So that's where that's one place where citation comes in and why it's important, so that you can make that clear distinction and not be seen to be taking credit for someone else's thoughts or words. So according to the APA, the publication manual of the American Psychological Association, there are several times when you need to cite, one being a paraphrase. So even if you're not using someone's direct words, if you're summarizing their ideas or paraphrasing their ideas, you need to cite that because that is not your original thought, that is someone else's thought, and you need to give them credit for that. Another time is obviously direct quote. So this is a time when it's really clear. I think everybody's pretty aware that if you quote someone, you need to cite it. Also, if you refer to someone else's data, you need to cite that. And if you use a table or a figure from another source. So that's the last main time when you need to cite something. So as you can see here, trying to show good practice here and putting my citation in with that information that I took directly from the APA style guide. So plagiarism is just one component from the academic honesty policy, which I'll show you here. So this is the college academic honesty policy. Plagiarism, not committing plagiarism, is one aspect of it, but it is broader than that. As you can see here, you should not also engage in cheating, so copying someone else's work. You should unauthorized collaboration. So if you are if you're supposed to do something on an individual basis and you're doing it in a group, and you're not supposed to do that. Sharing your tests or quizzes online or on any sort of, or even, not even offline. You're not supposed to share those items. Forgery, so saying you did something when you didn't. et cetera, misrepresenting the originality of your work. So sometimes that can even get into what we call self-plagiarism, where if you write a paper for one class and then you repurpose it, you say, I already wrote a similar paper, and you just turn the same paper in for another class, that is self-plagiarism, and it's not considered academically honest. So even though it is still your work, you are supposed to do unique work for each class. So you could maybe have a discussion with a professor if you want to do research on the same topic, but you should not be turning in the same work for more than one class. Of course, now we have a lot of AI tools at our disposal, and using AI generated work, that is not your original work. So you should not be using AI to do your assignments for you. And let me just say, as a librarian, AI is really bad at doing research for you. If you have to have sources, I've been getting questions from patrons, and I know when I look at these patrons, they ask me, oh, I have this citation, can you find this resource? And when I start looking for the resource, I understand immediately, okay, this person went to ChatGPT and put in a prompt, and they're getting back bogus citations. So, it's pretty obvious when someone's using AI, and it's unethical, and it's defeats the purpose in many ways. You're not learning as much. The AI is not very good. It's not good enough to give you good quality sources and do good quality work for you. And it's just dishonest to do that. So, if you have a way of using AI as a productivity tool, that is fine. If you use it to help you get organized, to help you brainstorm, something like that. But you should not be using AI to do your research or do your writing for you. That's not academically honest, and it just does not work very well. So, the other reason why we cite things, so, again, distinguishing between your own original thought and the work of someone else, the ideas of someone else is important. But, when you're making a claim in a paper, you need to provide evidence for that claim. We want to see that this is not something that you made up, that there is solid evidence behind that. And so citing other people's works can help to bolster support for your thesis when you're doing writing. So that is the other way that citations help you to provide that support for your claims. So moving on. So I want you to think about citations as an information map. So when you're writing your paper, you have your in-text citation, and then the in-text citation is a pointer that points you to the reference list citation. And then the reference list citation can then lead you to the original source of the information that you're citing in your paper. So that can be really helpful when you're doing research. It can also be helpful if someone is reviewing your paper, because if they want to go and check your sources and see where that information came from, they're then able to do that. So citations are immensely helpful when you're doing research, and then also when you're reviewing research as well. So just to kind of visualize what I mean here, up in the top left, you have an example of the in-text citation. So in this case, it's Diniz et al. Is the article we're looking at. It's cited here in the text. And then down here, I took another screenshot from the references list that shows the full citation for this Diniz et al. Article. And then using that information, I'm then able to do a search and then locate that specific article in our library. So this is a screenshot from the library search that shows the article and how I found the article. So that's kind of again, the big picture idea of why citing is important. So let's talk about how to actually construct a citation now. So citations have two parts, right? So we have the full citation, which appears in the reference list. So that includes a pretty complete set of data about the article, again, and the purpose of that being to help you to locate that original article. And in that citation, you include this information, or if it's available. So you would include the author, obviously. That's usually the first thing that appears. If available, it's very common for web resources to not have a personal author. When you're dealing with books and journal articles, oftentimes there is a personal author. Occasionally there may not be, but most of the time there is a personal author. When you're dealing with a web resource, sometimes there's a personal author, but a lot of times there's not. The next thing that appears in an APA style full citation is the date. If the date's available. So once again, with things like articles and books, quite common, almost always you will have a date. Web resources, it's kind of a toss-up. Some web resources have dates, some do not. Just depends on what you're working with. APA style has a funny little quirk too, where if you don't have a date, if there's no obvious date on your resource, you still need to include a placeholder, end period, D period, ND in parentheses, instead of the date if there is no date. The next thing is the title of the resource. So the title of the book, title of the article, title of the web page, title of whatever it is that you're working with. And then you also will include the source information. So the source information can include a variety of different things. So when you're citing a book, the source is the publisher most of the time. When you're citing a journal article, it'll include the journal title, the volume number, the issue number, a DOI, etc. When you're citing a website, it would include the producer of the website in the source information. And then a DOI or a hyperlink, DOI for ebooks or online articles, or then a link if you're using a web resource. So then the second part of the citation, going back to my kind of map analogy. So this is like the abbreviated form of the citation that would point you to the full citation that will be in the text. So in the parenthetical or in text citation, you will include the author's last name, and the date, and then the location of where you got the information from. So the author's last name, if you have more than two authors, as can happen in the social sciences, you would use the first author and then et al. If you don't have a personal author, you would use the corporate author. So whatever comes first in your citation, that's what you would use in that first space. Usually it's either a personal author or a corporate author. Next, in APA style, you include the year as well. And then if you're using a direct quote, you would include the location of that quote. So you would include the section header, or a paragraph number or a page number, depending on what kind of resource you're using. So now I'm going to go through some do's and don'ts. So I kind of talked you through all of this information that's in citations. I'm now going to show you some examples, so that you can kind of visualize how a correct citation is supposed to look. So this is an APA style journal article citation. I chose to focus on journal articles citations because that's probably the bulk of the materials that you will be using as an EHHS student will be journal article citations. So here you can see we have a resource. This article has a number of authors. So in APA style, and I have some annotations here. This coloring, by the way, is not something you should be doing in your citations. I just did the color coding as a pedagogical tool. So you should not be color coding your citations this way. I just did it to show the different components. So the authors here are highlighted in red. You include all author names up to 20 authors. And as you can see, you use last name and first initial in APA style. The date is the year in parentheses. So this is the spot where if you don't have a date on your resource, if you're using a web resource that has no date, you would put ND in the parentheses there. Next is the title of the article. So this is the title of the article. Let me point out one thing about APA style. So APA style for this kind of title, it uses what we call sentence case. So basically you capitalize it the same way you would a sentence. So the first letter of the first word would be capitalized. Other words would not be capitalized except for proper nouns. So here we have Lake Champlain, Vermont. Those are proper nouns, so we capitalize them, of course. But all the other words in that title should not be capitalized. If you have a subtitle, you would capitalize the first letter after the colon in the subtitle. And then the rest of the citation is, and by the way, this in this case, in a journal article citation, you do not put quotation marks around the title and you do not italicize the title. So moving on to the source section of the citation, here we have the title of the journal. So the title of the journal, we actually do use title case where you do capitalize all the words except for prepositions and conjunctions and probably, yeah, prepositions and conjunctions. And you italicize that title. And then you have a comma after it. And then you have the volume number in italics, and immediately thereafter, you have the issue number in parentheses with a comma after that, and then the page number, the page numbers of the article. So I can't say that I know exactly why this formatting has endured so long, but APA has had this formatting for quite some time. So as you can see, we don't label anything here. It is just noted out like this. Increasingly, we are seeing more and more e-journals come on the scene where there's not even a printed version of the article. So some e-journals have sort of done away with page numbers, and some even have done away with things like issues. They just kind of release things on a rolling basis or on a more regular basis than your traditional sort of quarterly scholarly journal would. So whatever information you're able to find easily, you can include that in the citation, and that information should appear in the database that you find the article, and it should be pretty readily apparent. If you don't see something in the citation information on the citation page in the database, don't just invent something. So don't put something in there if it's not appearing somewhere on that page. I've seen some journals, they just they put a number on the article and that is considered the page number. So you increasingly may see that. And then at the end, you'll have the DOI. So the DOI is the digital object identifier. It's a very helpful piece of information. All DOIs, it's usually some sort of alphanumeric code and it begins with 10 dot. So this is a unique identifier for the article, and it's, if I have a citation for an article, the first thing I would do if I wanted to look it up is grab that DOI and just plug it into the library search, and it should bring the article up very quickly. Or if you're not able to find it through the library, you can certainly find it just through a regular internet search. So that DOI is important. Not all articles have DOIs. Some articles that are a little older may not have them. But if there is a DOI, it's definitely important to include that. So let me also show now how you would do an in-text citation for this article. Now I couldn't possibly go through every, I'm barely scratching the surface in terms of how to format the citations or how to format in-text citations, because I have here the APA manual, and just looking at it, I think it has, it may have like, It has, I believe, over 100 different examples of different types of resources to cite. So I can't possibly cover, even a small fraction of that in, a few minute presentation. But we do have the style guide here in the library. It's very helpful. It's very useful. So, if you do want access to that, we do have that in the library. So anyway, going on to showing the in-text citation, here we have a quote from this paper, and over here highlighted, I formatted the in-text citation for that. So you can see, because it has more than 2 authors, I put the first author et al., and then comma, the year, and climate projection section. So that's the location where I found this quote, so that someone could quite easily scan through the paper and find the section and then find that quote. So that's one way to do it. That is like the parenthetical citation method of doing it. You can also do it in what they call narrative form. So that's where you put the author first and you say this person et al., and then you would have the date after that. And then you would lead into your quote that way. And then you would kind of sandwich it at the end by putting the location of that quote at the end of the quote. So either of these is equally correct. Writers in the field, they use both of these formats. So they may use, and they mix it up sometimes, just to have some variety in the writing. So again, this is, the parenthetical or the narrative style of in-text citations. Either one is fine. And, but the format should include, again, all of this information, where it has the author or authors, the date, the year, and the section or page number if you have a book. All right, moving on. So other ways of formatting. So other do's about formatting: double space your citations. APA style does ask for you to double space your citation. In APA style, we also use what is called a hanging indent. So I hope this is really helpful for you. I know it was helpful for me to learn this, because if you've ever tried to manually format a hanging indent, it is a real hassle. So I have here in the next couple of slides a method for formatting the hanging indent without wanting to, bang your head on the desk. So here's a document that I have to demonstrate this. Pardon me. So I've got here my citation, and it is not properly. So the hanging indent, by the way, just to explain what that is, maybe you're familiar with it. It is the reverse of a paragraph indentation. So a paragraph indentation, your first line is indented, and then subsequent lines are at the margin. Citations are the opposite. So the first line is at the margin, subsequent lines are indented if you have more than one line in your citation. So what you do to format the hanging indent, you highlight your citation, you go to Format, the Format menu, align and indent, and then this last option down here, Indentation Options. Under Special Indent, you select Hanging, and now Google Docs makes you put in the margin, manually enter the margin. So you would enter 0.5, that's how much you would want to indent it, and then apply, and it should do this nice hanging indent for you, formatted for you, with relatively less crying. So hopefully that's helpful for you. And if you need to follow the instructions, I will be including the slides with this presentation, so you'll have that slide there to refer to. There is also Microsoft Word, a method to do this in Microsoft Word. Oops, sorry. So you can go to paragraph. You can pop out the paragraph section, go to indentation and special, select hanging. So it's quite similar, just the menu looks a little different in Microsoft Word. Okay, so my last do's. Do use citation management software or citation generators. So these are really helpful. Probably you're already using these. You know, citing things is monotonous. It's really boring. It's really tedious. But these citation generators can take a lot of the kind of drudgery out of it, make it much faster and easier. So some of these include EasyBib, Zotero, Citation Machine, or the citation tools in Google Drive or Microsoft Word. Do double check your formatting, so make sure that your formatting adheres to APA standards. Now moving on to don'ts. So don't use a citation management software or citation generator without checking for errors. So I want to show you an example of what I'm talking about here. So this is the library, the page, the library catalog entry for the publication manual of the American Psychological Association, which I cited earlier in the presentation. We have here a nice little button for citation. That's great. So we click on this and we see a citation. And, you know, looking at it, hopefully you notice that there's something kind of wrong with this. And that being that it kind of repeats the corporate author twice. So I don't know why it does that. It says American Psychological Association issuing body and American Psychological Association issuing body. So you would obviously want to, you know, omit the extraneous mention of the American Psychological Association. I think this citation basically has very little in the way of information aside from the American Psychological Association, but we don't need it in there like 4 times. So anyway, I don't need to get into. I was gonna go look at the metadata, but I'll do that later. So some of these citation generators, they can be a little bit quirky, and they can pull in extra information. They can be missing information. You know, sometimes the code is just not working right. Sometimes they pull in weird formatting things. There used to be a database that would pull in the author's email address into the citation. So things like that don't belong in the citation, and you should be editing those out. You should not be cutting and pasting and then forgetting about your citation. You should be looking over it and at least doing a quick copy edit to make sure that there's no extra information or wrong information in your citation. So if I was using this citation, you know, I would take out this issuing body and then the second American Psychological Association. I would just take those out. Otherwise, it doesn't look so bad. I would probably put like 7, like the number 7, 7th ed. I think that's usually how um, the format is supposed to be in APA style. So be careful when you're using these generators. They're not always correct. They make mistakes. Don't put anything in front of the first word of a citation. Don't number your citations. Don't put dashes. Don't put bullet points, et cetera, et cetera. So it should just be a line of citations, no number or anything, just right there starting at the margin. Don't use all caps. That's something that happens a lot with the generator, so just make sure you're editing that out. And again, make sure you're using either sentence case or title case as the case may be. So sentence case for article titles or book titles, and then title case for journal titles. Do not expect to be able to write out citations from memory. So what you should be doing when you're doing your citations is opening a reference. You should have a reference for you in front of you. I'll show you a few references here in a moment. And as you're doing your citations, check your citation that you have against a reference and make corrections on the spot. That way you're not making mistakes. But don't expect to be able to do this from memory. I always tell my students, I've been in some capacity writing citations or teaching citations for about 10 years, and I I don't have everything memorized. I frequently refer back to the style guide or our quick guides to make sure I'm doing things correctly or grading things correctly. So some references that you can use. So our citations and bibliographies guide is here. This is the APA guide here. You have APA reference list. This is probably what you would want to be using. So the APA reference list. So this gives you a selection of examples of different types of APA style citations. So the second box here is going to be your journal articles. So it has some examples of different types of journal articles to cite and how to cite them. We have books above that, and farther down, things like newspapers, web pages, etc. Of course, this is not an exhaustive list. I told you the APA publication manual has over 100 examples, so we couldn't possibly come up with publish 100 examples in our little shorthand guide. We also have a guide, a short guide for in-text citations, and once again, it's not exhaustive. It probably would be fine for most of your needs as when you're a student here, but there can always be times when you have to go to a more extensive resource. So you have Purdue OWL as well. Purdue OWL has been around a very long time. I was using it when I was an undergraduate, and that was 20 years ago. So Purdue OWL is a good resource. It's a little bit more extensive than our in-house guide. Again, the printed style guide we have here, publication manual of the American Psychological Association. Very easy to use, very helpful, so don't be intimidated by it. And then the last thing is ask a librarian. So we're happy to help you with your citations. I get lots of citation questions at the end of the semester. We have the research help desk on the second floor of the library. There's a librarian there from 12 to 5, Monday through Thursday. You can email reference@plattsburgh.edu. That goes into our ticketing system, and I'm the manager of the ticketing system. So if you send an email to that email address, chances are I will be the one replying to you. If not, another one of my very capable colleagues will be replying. We do also have a self-schedule option for consults. We do one-on-one consults. So you can go by date and time, or you can go by person, and you can choose a time that works for you, works for your schedule. Okay. We do also have a chat service. So down here at the bottom right, you can see there's a little orange box with a dialog box. This is a 24/7 chat service that you can chat with a librarian anytime. It won't be necessarily one of our librarians, but it's a consortium of library workers. And they are very capable. I get a lot of tickets from the chat, and so I'm able to read the chat, and they're very knowledgeable and very helpful, most of these chat operators. So definitely encourage you to use that service especially if you're doing work out after hours and you maybe need on the spot help, but it's kind of after hours, so most of our staff is not around. And again, some of the citation management or generation tools, the cite button. So these appear in many of our databases and in the library catalog. But as I said, there are some caveats there. You have to be really careful using those because they're not always correct. Sometimes they have problems. EasyBib is pretty popular. Zotero is really great. It has kind of a learning curve to use it. It's a really more of a kind of comprehensive research management software. It's free and open source, so you don't have to pay a fee to use it or deal with ads or anything like that. But it is a little bit of a learning curve to use it. You have to install it on your computer. Well, you don't have to. They have a web version, but you can install it on your computer. And once you get it set up, you can do drag and drop citations, which is great. You just have to make sure you have the right metadata in Zotero, which, you know, it's a little bit of work again, but it's a really great service if you want to use it as a comprehensive research management tool. So that's all I have. One other thing I want to note, before we stop or before I pass it over to Mila. So I recommend, when you're doing research, I highly recommend getting your citations as you do the research. So if you find a resource and you like it, you feel like it's interesting, it might be helpful, go ahead and grab that citation. That will enable you to, first of all, quickly locate the resource again. And second of all, you'll have that citation already when you're getting toward the end of your paper. You're not going to have to do as much work to put together the citation when you're at a later phase in your research. And by the way, don't, if you're in one of our databases, do not use the link and the address bar, because that's a temporary link. So make sure that you get the whole citation and save it, and that way you can quickly access it again. So thanks very much for your attention, and I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Mila now.
Thank you, Melina. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to follow up a little bit with what Melina had covered, but what I did was create a supplemental list of resources that you may find useful as you go forward with doing research and using APA. So when Melina was talking about pulling the citation or saving the citation as you're in any of our library databases, many of them have folders where you can dump articles that look promising and then email that folder to you. So you have all the articles that you were interested in while you were in that particular database. You can also, especially a number of them will have a link that says permalink. If you activate that link and copy that, that will directly take you to that article, because the permalink is attached to that article in a similar way with DOIs. And I want to stress the importance of the digital object identifier, or the DOI. There is not a standard on where they will appear. So when you're looking at a scholarly article, it might be at the very top of the page. It might be on the side of the page. It might be at the bottom of the page. But it's very important that you look for that information, because that is a critical required piece of information for your citation. I also should alert you to the fact that a number of more current books and reports may also include a DOI. And if they exist, you must include that as part of the citation. Okay, so as Melina had shown you, I have a link to our to the tab in our library webpage. I'm just going to copy it. So as you can see, here are all the links to the resources that she mentioned. And that is very, very helpful if you get stuck or have a question that you either need a quick response to, or if you want to set up a one-on-one, scheduling an appointment is the way to go. It's a good option to do. So what I did was I copied, as Melina had shown you earlier, this is the link to Plattsburgh's Academic Honesty. It is our It outlines all the different types of concerns that are related to providing information that shows your due diligence. So there are actually quite a few more, but they are just highlighting the most common aspect. There is a process that's supposed to go through, and this gives you the information, and it also gives you information about what students can do if they are in that kind of situation. So just wanted to highlight that. One of the things that I find very interesting in the past couple of years is APA used to be very, very stringent on the information that they would share. And that's why a number of libraries, including Purdue, started providing information regarding style manuals because it was just really challenging. In the past couple of years, APA has really loosened up the information that is related to citing their resources, not to the extent where you can find the style manual for free, but they give you a lot of really good hints and descriptions and examples. So when there was information available, I went ahead and grabbed that because they are using their expectations of the style manual. So for instance, here is what APA says about plagiarism. And this is part of their code of ethics. And if you are going into this field or a field where APA is being used in that field, there is an assumption that you will also be following the code of ethics. So here they tell you if you provide appropriate credit, as Melina pointed out. Here are some basic expectations. And it's just really nice that APA is now providing information to their resources to help students and researchers use their style expectations properly. I also included a couple of different institutions that have really nice examples about API citations and why you want to use in-text citations and full citations to support your research because it's evidence. You are documenting information that you found to support the information that you're presenting in your paper. This was kind of fun. Oh, yeah. So here's another thing. This does take students a while to understand that there's actually structures that are involved with journal articles. Now, each publisher may have different expectations on how the information may be presented, and certainly the type of journal article may also reflect some differences. But this is the framework you'll see. The title and the author. So it's the title of the article, the author or authors of the article. And APA is pretty picky. They said if you have 20 people involved with this article, you put all 20 in. And it goes in rank order. So the first name on that list of authors is going to be your lead author. They are considered to be the ones responsible for that information. So if you're checking on authority, they are the person that you want to check. Okay. And then everybody else is in order of how much they contributed. You have an abstract or a summary of the article. It should include the methodology of how they chose to investigate or do the research. So whether it's a lit review or a chi-squared kind of study, that should be in there. Okay. Then you have the introduction, which should include the purpose or the reason why this research was done. You should have the methods. You should have results. Any data that is listed should be identified from where it was extracted. You will have discussion, maybe a conclusion. And again, with tables and figures, they should have the information of where that information was extracted from. And then, as Melina pointed out, you have the reference list. So I think it's really good to just start understanding how a scholarly article is set up. And so I provided a couple of different examples of that. And then I have a link that discusses the range of different scholarly articles that you might find over time with your research. I then provide some information about the overall, what your paper should look like according to APA. And many of your faculty may be very, very clear in saying to you, this is what I want your paper to look like. And some of them may even be giving you practice assignments where you need to have your heading, you need to have your outline. What is that going to look like? And then they'll provide some feedback to you to help make sure that you've got the paper in proper format. And then I just provide a couple of other links and examples, including some the variety of in-text citation formats you can use. I've included some YouTube videos that do a really nice job explaining APA citations. And part of why I did that is because, as Melina had mentioned earlier, you don't necessarily need to memorize every single format. You need to have a general understanding. APA does author, date, and then the other information. There are style manual updates. So we are in the 7th for APA. The 8th edition may have some additional changes. Then you start looking at what are those changes. And then you have to make the adjustments that way. So having a good understanding of what it might look like is important, but then it's also important to know if there's an update, you need to check and make sure that what you're citing is correct. For example, up to the 6th edition, books included the location. No one does that anymore. They just have the name of the publisher. But I know that I have to double check my citations because sometimes they still put the location in and then I have to go back and take it out. So we're trying to give you some experienced advice on working with citations. So anyway, that's what I did. I just thought that I thought it might be useful to you as students to have some additional resources that you could investigate on your own to see what may be useful to you, because you're all at different stages of your research process and may have other questions on your mind. But as Melina said, feel free to reach out to us and we can help you to the best of our ability. So that's all I want to cover. Oh, one more thing. I'm sorry. I apologize. One more thing. If you come to a spot where a book or a journal article is not available and you really need it, what you can do is request it on interlibrary loan. And where you go is on the library homepage, you go to request an item, interlibrary loan, and we have really good instructions on walking you through how to get set up with your interlibrary loan account. In the process of the library, here for Feinberg Library, if I do a quick search here in our in Primo, and I see this, oh, here's something about Zoom and some other things during post-COVID. It says check for available services. I can click on this. We don't own it, but we can request it from North Country, and all you need to do from the catalog is click on this, log in, and then you can request the item. You will be contacted by Interlibrary Loan that the item is ready for you to pick up. Come to the second floor of the library at the big service desk with your ID, and you get your book. If it's a journal article, it will be delivered by email, but anything in physical format will be at the big service desk on the second floor of the library. And that's all I wanted to cover. So thank you. Turn it back over to Chris.
All right, thank you very much, Mila. And I just want to thank both of you again, Mila and Melina. We appreciate you being here with us today. We appreciate you guiding our students, and I'm really happy that you provided some avenues for connection in case they need to follow up with you, and really get that one-on-one personalized support that Plattsburgh is known for. So thank you.